Hey guys, this is Ryan Johnson with Ryan Johnson Ministries. I want to share a dream with you that I had. First of all, I want to tell you today's Monday, September the 10th. It is 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I want to share that information because I believe it's important to kind of time date and stamp this so that we know when we're talking about. Right now, the number one news article right now is Hurricane Florence that has formed in the Atlantic, and it's barreling down on the Carolinas right now. But we're praying and rebuking that thing turn and go back out into the Atlantic. So that's the big news of the day right now. But at September the 10th, I do want to share that a couple of days ago, I had a dream. This was probably about 4 or 5 days ago. In the dream, I'm in Washington, D.C. Now, I know that I'm in Washington, D.C. because I lived near Washington, D.C. for a number of years. I've been there multiple times, know my way around D.C. But in the dream, I'm there and there's a multitude, there's people everywhere. And as people are gathered around, they're kind of going about their business. All of a sudden, water begins to come up out of the ground, out of the streets. It begins to rise up, and it's rising, it's rising, it's rising. And it's not happening that it's happening like super, super fast, but it's not happening drastically slow either. It is progressively rising. And, it's getting over your ankles and it's rising up, and people are starting to panic in the dream, and they're panicking because they're going, what is happening? We're going to die. We're going to drown here. And as the water kept rising, all of a sudden there appears an alligator, and this alligator was huge. I mean, it was ginormous. It was big, and it's wading through the water, and people start panicking and freaking out. And all of a sudden, this alligator starts taking individuals down. I mean, it is pulling them down. It's pulling them down. It's pulling them down. And after this is going on, people are still panicking. They're screaming. They're asking what's going on. Where do I go? Where do I run? Out of the water, as the water kept rising, out of the water rises this ginormous dragon. I mean, a dragon of all things. And I mean, it is twice the size of the alligator. And when the dragon rises up, the dragon begins to fight the alligator, and they're just going toe to toe. And I mean, it is a battle royale. I mean, there's blood everywhere. People are screaming. People are trying to run, get away, trying to get out of this water. And they're just going, toe to toe with one another. And the alligator kind of lines itself up, and its snout kind of points out that way. And the dragon comes around the side, and it bites the head off of the alligator at the neck part. It just bites down on the neck and rips the head off. And when the alligator rips the head off, I mean, the dragon rips the head of the alligator off, the people start celebrating, and they start cheering for this dragon, and they are like honoring the dragon and almost to a degree of worship, and they're just cheering this dragon on. And I remember the dream. I'm there and I'm telling people, whoa, 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 stop cheering the dragon. Can you not tell that the dragon is more evil than the alligator? Can you not tell that the dragon is, you can't be worshiping this dragon. You can't be honoring this dragon. Whoa, whoa, stop cheering him on. Stop celebrating. We got to get rid of the dragon. And then I woke up. And when I woke up, I kind of held on to this for a few days because I was trying to figure out, what all does this mean? When we go to the Bible and we look at alligator, it can be a type and shadow of a Leviathan spirit. It can also kind of remind you of Pharaoh and the Egyptian, the Nile River. When we look at dragon, there's a couple of references in the Bible. When the Bible talks about a dragon comes up out of the sea in Revelations, it's talking about Satan would come up as a dragon in Revelations. Nehemiah even mentions a dragon whale. Now, I said all that to say, I necessarily don't believe it is those two things. I don't believe the dragon represents Satan, and I don't believe that the alligator represents Leviathan. The reason I don't is because I don't see Satan and Leviathan arguing with one another and Satan eventually snapping the head off of Leviathan. First of all, that's not even scripturally correct. So I can't see it as a type and shadow of that. So I knew that this had to be something that was significantly different from that. So I just, I kind of stayed with it some days. I kept praying, and I just couldn't really find peace about it. So I called my good friend, Prophet Jason Armstrong. When I called him, I began to share the dream with him. He said, what's interesting is you mentioned it was in D.C., and he said, the whole drain in the swamp. And I said, yeah, I know, but it was weird because the water was rising. It wasn't low, swampy waters. It was water that was rising. It was floodwaters, to that degree. And he goes, another thing is dragon is often represented as China. When he said that, my spirit leaped. And I was like, oh, wow, wait a minute. Now that speaks to me for some reason. And he said, I wonder if it's the year of the dragon. So I went and done some research and stuff and everything. And I also messaged another good friend, Prophet Jacob Biswell. When I messaged Prophet Jacob, Jacob sent me an article from 2015 that talked about the fact that when President Trump, before he was ever a presidential candidate, he had tried to build some casinos in Florida. And when he tried to build those casinos in Florida, he went down and visited a Native American chief there. And the chief had this huge alligator that was like 800 pounds, over 13-foot long. And that chief named that alligator Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a minute, there's an alligator named Donald Trump. So I began to do more research on this. And as I began to dig in, I began to dig in twofold. Number one, let's talk about the dragon, for an example. China has this tradition that each year represents an animal. For example, this year is the year of the pig, next year is the year of the dog. But the year of the dragon will not occur till 2024. And that's important. I want you to remember that in just a moment. But China right now has something very significant. It is going on twofold. Number one, China and President Trump are kind of going toe to toe concerning the tariffs right now. In a lot of the articles that I had read, China had even said that they would retaliate against the United States if some of these tariffs were broken and these trade agreements were broken. And they would retaliate in a way economically and military wise to be able to show the strength of China. Number two, on August 29th, according to a lot of news articles, former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton was suggested by President Trump that her email was hacked by China. So there's a potential there's some email issues going on concerning former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and China. Now let's go back to the alligator just for a moment. Now, as funny as it is that there's a 800-pound alligator in Florida named President, Donald Trump, there's some interesting things. When I began to research this out, I found news articles where multiple times people have referenced President Trump as an alligator. Multiple times. Matter of fact, two people that have been in court because of some things that they had done. One of those guys recently in an article just the other day, September the 2nd, referenced President Trump as the head alligator. A lot of times he's been referenced in news articles from the Newsweek to New York Post to the Washington Post to the New York Times and so on and so forth. They have referenced him as an alligator, the alligator of the swamp is what they reference him as. Now, I never knew this before, so this is something that kind of stood out to me. And let's go back and talk about the dream. Let's say that the dream does represent a flood rising in a storm rising in D.C. And here is this alligator representing President Trump trying to take out the people in the quote unquote draining the swamp. But a dragon emerges and people begin to celebrate the dragon because it cuts the head off, the removal of the neck. So here's some potentials of this. Number one, the year of the dragon doesn't occur till 2024. Now, here's what we know. This is 2018. Again, this is September the 10th. Now it is 2:39 p.m. Central Standard Time. Here's what we do know. If President Trump runs again, gets elected again, his final year of term will be 2024. There will be another presidential election, November of 2024. So this could prophetically be a warning about how China somehow does something to hypothetically cut the head of Trump off and could somehow affect the presidential election in 2024. Again, the Chinese year, the year of the dragon being 2024. This could have something to do with that. Why is that important? Because right now, one of the rising ideas in our political landscape is socialism. Socialism is definitely linked to China because of the dictatorship that China has in that. So there may be some kind of presidential infiltration as far as that concern. And I can see because President Trump is not popular with a lot of people, I can see how China could do something to cut off, hypothetically, the head of Trump, and people start praising the role of China in this, especially from a socialist standpoint. Or this could be something that is happening right now, that because of the tariffs that are going on, because of the deal with former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, China could be doing something right now that could cause damage to President Trump, and that would cause a lot of people to get excited in that. Now, here's what I'm sharing all this for, is because I don't have 100% clarity. I don't know exactly what's going on for this. There's an urgency in my spirit that this could mean something now, but it could mean something way down the road, because 6 years from now is the next presidential election. And for everything that President Trump could do, it would shift into the next presidential election in 2024. 6 years, six being the number of man, China's influence in that, or they could be doing something right now.